Observe a modern executive during calm, routine operational seasons, and you will see someone who appears highly articulate, competent, and completely unbreakable. They project absolute firmness. But industrial engineers know that materials behave very differently when the environment changes. In engineering, there is a concept called a temperature drop. When an unexpected extreme crisis hits, the operating environment rapidly freezes. Under these intense loads, leaders who only appeared strong shatter. This level of leadership failure rarely announces itself in advance. It stays hidden during good quarters and easy markets because it stems from an internal brittleness rather than a visible weakness. This hidden condition is known as weakness. It is an invisible excess of pliability. When the pressure spikes, a leader suffering from weakness yields to the loudest voices in the room, twists their core principles to fit the immediate circumstances, and bends the truth simply to save face. This equation shows the core mechanics of organizational collapse, borrowing directly from the physics of mechanical breakdown. Crisis pressure divided by structural integrity equals failure velocity. Think of a compromised cryogenic pressure vessel. When a leader's internal structural integrity is flawed, the denominator in our equation shrinks. As a direct result, the velocity of their failure under load accelerates exponentially. To protect an organization from catastrophic collapse, we must identify the specific fatigue cracks causing it. The first hidden pattern of weakness is called the void. This structural weakness is born from a simple lack of specific skills, exposure, or capability. Under pressure, leaders with a void fall into a cognitive trap known as the hurry-up syndrome. When driven by perceived schedule pressures or distractions, human performance and decision-making degrade rapidly. The brain tells the leader they have to rush. We have empirical proof of how deadly this trap is. During the Tenerife aviation disaster, thick fog, complex duty time regulations, and intense external pressure to take off created a perfect storm of urgency. That perceived urgency forced highly experienced leaders to completely abandon standard, linear procedures. They bypassed safety checklists, leading to massive errors of omission, forgetting vital steps. Taking the wrong actions entirely resulted in the deadliest accident in aviation history. The only way to correct a void is through strict operational discipline. A leader must have the humility to slow down and refuse to let external urgency bypass core checklists and protocols. The second pattern of weakness is known as the fractured. These are deep vertical flaws, insecurity, narcissism, and unresolved trauma. When a fractured leader gains authority, the damage scales quickly. Fracture multiplied by power equals systemic damage. The biological trigger for this damage is a phenomenon called fear of negative evaluation, or FNE. When an insecure leader faces social pressure or the possibility of failure, their nervous system enters a state of severe physiological over-arousal. This diagram of the human brain shows exactly what happens next. Executive control shifts immediately away from the rational prefrontal cortex and drops into the midbrain's threat response centers. Rational decision-making completely short-circuits. Because the brain is now locked in a survival-oriented threat state, it views high-performing team members as existential risks to the leader's social status. This biological hijack forces the leader into defensive aggression, actively sabotaging competent teams to neutralize the perceived threat and protect their fragile authority. The third pattern, the shadow, is the most dangerous trap for elite high performers. This occurs when an overused strength becomes rigid. Without self-regulation, an executive's past strengths minus awareness equals weakness. Neuroscience reveals a painful paradox here. Leaders with high working memory capacity are most susceptible to choking under intense evaluative pressure. Their cognitive capacity works against them. This flowing line represents fluid expertise. Under intense stress, experts fall into explicit monitoring, overanalyzing automated skills step by step. The fluid line breaks into rigid steps. When leaders overanalyze intuitive leaps during a crisis, these shortcuts rapidly devolve into tangled, fatal cognitive errors. Elite success in the past offers no shield against pressure in the present. Without strict self-awareness, a visionary leader's decisiveness blindly devolves into rigidity. To repair these flaws, leaders must adopt fitness for service self-auditing. In industrial engineering, aging pressure vessels undergo strict assessments to prove they can still operate safely. Leaders must subject their own subsurface blind spots to the exact same brutal self-measurement. Once you audit your flaws, you need an immediate biological safeguard. Elite performers prevent choking under pressure by utilizing a perceptual cognitive skill known as the quiet eye. The quiet eye involves maintaining a long, hyper-focused gaze on a specific target right before execution. This forces a physical and mental reflective pause, which protects the brain's attentional control from the distracting effects of anxiety. By applying the quiet eye, a leader gains the space to reframe their stress. Instead of panicking over a racing heart, they can consciously interpret that physiological response as a beneficial biological tool delivering heightened reasoning for the crisis. These two structures illustrate the difference between weakness and vulnerability. Weakness results in plastic deformation. It bends under pressure, blames others, and permanently distorts the system. True vulnerability operates on elasticity. It absorbs extreme stress, increases capacity, and returns to its core shape without shattering. By consciously choosing elasticity over rigid compromise, leaders build out the human margin. In a world accelerating toward cold efficiency and artificial intelligence, expanding this margin is the ultimate unbreakable buffer against systemic collapse. This structural integrity transforms extreme crisis into the very material that forges a permanent leadership legacy.